Since our storied beginning in Edinburgh, UK over 200 years ago, we have been outward-looking pioneers of education. We understand the value of delivering access to world-class education. And with our strong historic links with Malaysia dating back to 2011, the country was the clear choice in the next chapter of Heriot-Watt University's story. Ever since? Well, far be it from us to toot our own bagpipes, but it's been quite the decade for Heriot-Watt University Malaysia. Our story begins in 2012 as we welcomed our first 16 students to our first campus in Menara Putrajaya. Even as they walked through our doors, we were already building our new sustainable and sprawling 4.8-acre lakeside campus. Finally, in 2014, the Heriot-Watt University Malaysia campus proudly became our new home, the country's very first green campus. Here, we welcomed new faces, innovative new spaces, and celebrated the truly global leaders of tomorrow. And as we took to the stage, our students stepped proudly onto the world stage themselves. It's been an amazing decade where our students discovered new places, experienced new cultures, and expanded their horizons along the way, where they became true global citizens, learning to thrive in a fast-changing, globally connected world. Here's to 10 years of diversity and inclusivity, of discovery and progressiveness, of delivering impact and driving purpose, of work and play, and building truly global, future-ready graduates. Heriot-Watt University Malaysia. What a decade!
Hello and very good afternoon and welcome to our session today. We're talking about the built environment 4.0, moving towards diversity, inclusion and sustainability. I'm Premesh Chandran from Malaysiakini, and we have a very exciting group of panelists with us today. Today we're talking about the profession of architecture. Indeed, it's always been dominated by men, and women have had a tough time in getting into the industry. At university, about 50% of students in architecture are women. 35% of women graduate in the profession. In terms of graduates, about 35% of them are women, but only 20% of them progress to be registered architects. This happens in other countries across the globe, where women, after leaving college, may drop out to take care of family members or begin a family. The ratio of women enrolling in architectural studies and women who actually end up doing the job is concerning. We are here today to discuss on why women could play vital roles in challenging and building big architectural projects, and how women's participation in architectural education plays an important role in economic growth and development. A young female architect might be intimidated by this environment, and so it's important to be a role model and to have a visible leader among them to encourage them. And now let's welcome our speakers. We have three speakers today. Joining us, firstly, is architect Dr. Serena Hijaz. She's really well known. She's a leading architect in Malaysia and an honorary graduate of University Malaya. She's one of the creative directors at Hijaz Architects. She's worked on a lot of projects, among them the Heriot-Watt Green Campus, the Salicom Tower, interconnected offices, the Dubai Expo Net Zero Malaysian Pavilion, which I understand won quite a few awards. And she's also the chairperson of the Green Building Index Accreditation Panel and the vice president of the Malaysian Green Building Council. Welcome, Dr. Serena. We also have Professor Engineer Dr. Satesh Namasivayam. She's the head of the School of Energy, Geoscience, Infrastructure, and Society at the Heriot-Watt University Malaysia. And he's formerly a fellow of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers and Chartered Engineer, registered with the Engineering Council of the UK. He's the only Malaysian member of the International Steering Committee for the Global grand challenges of the National Academy of Engineering USA, and currently the academic head of the School of Energy, Geoscience, Infrastructure, and Society at the Heriot-Watt, Malaysia. We also have Komala Selva, an alumni of Heriot-Watt University Malaysia, currently a lead associate at KSK Land, and she's done a lot of internships with YTL, with Archie Panel, Top Glove, Veritas, and advertising agencies, and graduated with a first-class honors in quantitative surveying from Heriot-Watt University Malaysia. Thank you for our speakers, and thank you to our audience for joining us today. Welcome to our panel. So we begin with a discussion about how do we improve the participation of women in the built environment sector. To start with, perhaps we can, so maybe I can put this question to all three speakers. Maybe Dr. Serena can get us off the ground in terms of how do we increase women's participation in the built environment sector.
Thanks a lot, Premesh. Yeah, I think having been in this industry for a good decade or two or more, shall I say, I think it's very interesting that even though when I finished the education, at university, there was 50-50. I thought that when I stepped out into the field, I would see 50-50% women and men in terms of architecture in the field, but it isn't so. I think you need a lot of support, to get women basically up there to lead. And that support comes from the belief, a first-hand belief, basically, that you're in the position to take on the built environment and the architectural environment. So support is one area. I think I was quite lucky. I had a sort of father in the field, but also looked at his sons and his daughters in the same way, like, what are you going to be doing with your life and how are you going to achieve it? And was equally aggressive with both of us, not gender specific, but more about what are you going to do? And I think that support, and then going into the field, you need that without having the kind of dropout levels that we're seeing in women, and women's own belief that actually they're as comparative as any other men in the field. I think that's the first thing.
Fantastic, thanks a lot. Yes, I think that definitely, the support of parents are essential, and a belief that, you can succeed in the field regardless of your gender. Maybe I can throw the question to Komala. What do you think? What can we do to encourage women to stay in the field?
Unfortunately, unlike what Serena said about how she sees 50-50 in when she was doing her degree, in quantity surveying, we don't see 50-50. In my class, I graduated last year. It was more like a 20% women ratio. And the sad thing about it is now it's 20%, but as we progress with our career, there's this phenomenon called the leaky pipes. So some of them feel like construction is not for me, and then they drop out, or some get married and then they don't work. And so this 20% just gets lesser and lesser. And what is the real percentage of decision-making women in the built environment, right? It's just going to be very less. Even though I see the government having policies like they want 30% of women in public listed companies as board of directors, many other private companies also want a balance, but it all starts from the university. And I also think it's upbringing, and also from the school. When we say an engineer, we always ask, who is he? Why do we put that he? We think it's a man. When you say an architect, we don't think of a she, we think of a he. So it's a lot of cultural changes that we have to do as well, and also parents instilling to their children. Like Serena is fortunate enough that her dad was an architect, so she could really follow his footsteps. Many children see their mom as housewives or teachers, and they feel like, okay, I'm a woman, maybe this is what I should do. So it's about breaking that barrier. And like you said earlier also, I think family is the main thing. Family plays an important role of telling their children, both sons and daughters, you can be whatever you want. Ambition has got no gender, and leadership roles has also got no gender.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but this is very important right now. You said already only 20% participation and a dropout rate. I think we need to figure out a better strategy to get more women in the class as well as to stay on. But let me, throw the question on to Satesh. Coming from an academic background, and you see a lot of students, what can we do to, get the women who already participate in the course to stay in those courses and progress to be professionals in the built environment industry?
Thanks for the question, Premesh. I think, we've heard both Serena and Komala probably, describe a number of ways we could approach that. Education in terms of educating and increasing and raising the awareness of how women within the industry itself could actually play a more significant role is something that's really important. I think having the access to role models, people like Serena, people like Komala, to show the younger generation that we have women within the industry and are doing really well and they are excelling, and to essentially share, their success stories with the younger generation as well. So raising awareness through these areas, I think, is something we probably need to do better. I think, globally, I think we have to acknowledge that the sector has been seeing an uptake in terms of the number of women within the built environment industry, but, the growth isn't large. I mean, depending on where we are and, what source you're quoting from, Malaysia, for example, I've seen an article saying that it's between 30 to 35% of women within the construction sector. So it's not huge, and it indicates that there's still a large population of women and their talent which the industry is missing out on, and definitely there's more work to be done to further grow the sector in terms of women's participation.
So let's delve into the topic a little bit more and go deeper and see what we can do. Serena, maybe you can speak a little bit about some of the barriers that women architects face, and how would a woman architect thrive under such circumstances? What can they do to overcome these barriers?
In my office, we have quite a few young women architects that have sort of joined the field, and I didn't choose them because of anything but their merit, essentially. So when I was selecting them, I was looking at merit. But I think that what happens when you're in construction, the hours are long. It's a bit like medicine, but the interesting thing about medicine and health, medicine and education is the parity is there. We are seeing basically 90 to 100% with regards to men and women in the field. 90% means 90% involvement. We're only 10% short. In our areas, as you're saying, it's maybe only about 35%. And that's because the hours are long. They're quite demanding. Sometimes we're doing hours that we were doing when we were at school, which is pretty crazy for projects. And, we used to joke that the architects were the last guys in the room. The guys would be partying, would be the lawyers, and they'll pass the poor fellow architects in the building industry 4 o'clock still drawing their buildings, listening to the guys passing by. So it's a very hard course in that kind of way. It's very hard in terms of the work environment. And again, you need the support, without having the kind of dropouts where they're actually moving into dropping out because they don't have the support at home when they start their families and all the rest of it. I think that, I'm hoping that what we're seeing now is that the men and women's role in terms of taking care of the family is now equally becoming more balanced. And if that is becoming more balanced, then the actual support for women in architecture also becomes more balanced. So I'm hoping that this generation and women basically see themselves that, the men at home are equally supportive of the home economics, if you like, as much as it is in terms of the business economics in front, and seeing it that way.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think definitely, if men take up a stronger role at home, that will definitely help. Do you think, Dr. Serena, that now with this more hybrid working environment, where a lot of work is also being done at home, right? Home has not only become a home environment, but also become a work environment. Is that better or worse? On one hand, it allows women to work from home, but then if there's so much of work, other work, housework and care work to be done at home, how do you juggle the both? So do you think something that improves the situation or actually worsens the situation? It's kind of work from home environment.
I think more what you're talking about is flexibility. The flexibility of being able to work at home and in the office. I think that's as good for the men as it is for the women. I think that flexibility will give you that. There's still going to be contact time that you really need. When you've got to go through drawings and you've got to look at, argue about design and all the rest of it and hard facts of construction, you're going to have the face-to-face. But this flexibility definitely is going. It can be a bane as well, because as I say, there's a lot more distraction at home. I'm finding I'm working longer hours by doing, I'm sure all of you, during the whole pandemic, we were actually working longer hours than when we were in the office. So yeah, flexibility, that flexibility is going to help.
That's fantastic. I'll come back to you with a few more questions later, but moving on to Dr. Satesh, in terms of the subjects that are being taken in terms of the building environment, are there particular subjects that that women find more interesting? Is that changing? How do we change the syllabus so that they feel that women have much more a role in terms of when they're studying this issue of the built environment?
Yeah, I think it's probably more of changing the mindset, I suppose, in terms of recognizing that the subjects don't choose or differentiate between the gender. Essentially, it's about understanding that the subjects or the courses are there for the benefit of the profession. I think generally why, the uptake of such courses or subjects could be low from the perspective of women's participation. I think it could be due to several reasons. Maybe due to the unconscious bias or the stereotyping of the industry, which some say isn't favorable towards women, and maybe the general perception of the built environment industry as a whole, maybe related to manual labor, construction, and so on. And I think we all know this isn't true. The built environment itself has a wealth of career opportunities. It spans all areas of construction and building. We've talked about architecture, we talk about quantity surveying, we have construction project management. So there's a wealth of management and operational roles, all of which are aptly suited for qualified individuals, women and men alike. But as for change, I think definitely we are progressing as we move towards a more developed nation. And thriving on that shared prosperity and inclusivity, I think is something we are moving towards too. And obviously at Heriot-Watt, you've heard Komala talk about the gender ratio that she experienced while she was within her course itself. So this is something that we are continuously working on. And, this webinar, for example, is a real great opportunity for us to raise that awareness and to essentially say, look, this is for everybody.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. But if you're a young woman and you walk into a class and you see 80% of men, there, right? Isn't that intimidating? Don't you want to say, well, maybe I should just drop the subject and go to a class with more gender equality? How do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So I think one of the ways that we've been successful recently in trying to address this, and it comes back to having that role model, or it comes back to having that that ability where those that are going to be sharing the curriculum with you have that background of being women in industry. So, for example, within our teaching faculty, within the built environment discipline now, 67% of my staff are women. So while you may have 80% of the students are men, but the majority of the team that teach quantity surveying and construction project management, for example, are women, and they are professional surveyors, they are PhD holders. And I think that's a great statement to say that, the educators of the future, essentially a majority of them are women, and they will be advocating that such courses are essentially for everybody. Yeah. So even though, you walk in and it's full of guys, essentially your teachers are going to be women. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Sorry, go ahead.
I think, Premesh, we forget. I mean, everybody just thinks building industry is sort of architecture, but we have landscape, interior, urban planning, and the leads of the associations of these are actually moving. There are quite a lot of women in the lead positions of these. Even I think I'm told that I'm not sure if it's IEM or RISM is also having a women as the lead as this year. So there's many different parts of the building, and if the women feel that this one is just, I would say more, not so much when they see all the men, it's like, this is going to be tough. Not so much that it's, there's a lot more men, but this is going to be a tough course, maybe. I think that's the first sort of mindset. But there's all these other areas. And so when they start to open up and see, being a women landscape architect or interior or urban planning, how do you say, not perhaps so technically driven that you feel the technical parity, because you were given building blocks and little aeroplanes to play with when you were 3 years old. So I think that sort of that sort of starting the you as we see that if women are quite strong in healthcare and education, that there is the caring part, but there is also the administrative part and the juggling part. These are great strengths that women have. I mean, how many things can you juggle?
Yeah, those are great points, Dr. Serena and Dr. Satesh. I think, the fact that Heriot-Watt has 67% of the faculty are women, that's really commendable. And that's definitely supportive if you walk into a class and, you have a woman as a lecturer. I think that's really fantastic. I wanted to, just bring Komala into the conversation. I mean, you actually did a degree in this area. What made you pursue, this degree in quantitative surveying? How did you come about to do this?
Okay, so I identify as an extrovert, and I don't like routines. So when I was in Heriot-Watt, actually, I wanted to do actuarial science. I did a foundation in actuarial science, but as soon as I was done with the foundation, I thought, no, I cannot be sitting in front of a computer crunching numbers all day for the rest of my life and for the 3 years of my degree. So, but I really liked Heriot-Watt because I was part of the founding committees of the TEDx at the time. I was in the student association. I didn't want to leave the university. So I was thinking of doing something still in STEM. Because I considered I like talking to people and all that. So I thought, okay, I've got the soft skills parts kind of sorted out. Let's go for the hard skills so that I can be an all-rounder when I start working. So then I saw quantity surveying. I looked through the subjects and I was thinking, wow, it is very versatile. And it's a degree that not only teaches you manage technical skills, but also management stuff. And the technical skills are also very transferable. So I thought, even if one day I don't like the construction industry and all that, I can easily transfer all these skills to something like an IT industry or literally anywhere. Serena was mentioning earlier, urban planning and landscaping. Let me tell you, it's not even just that, it's more than that. There is oil and gas, a wealthy industry. I mean, people say it's going down now, but it's going to be around for 60 more years. And there is marine engineering, and these places all need architects to build rigs and quantity surveyors to calculate stuff, engineers. So job opportunities are abundant. And I also like how Heriot-Watt's education system is not very academic based. So that was also my strong point, because I like all these other hands-on kind of stuff. So I enjoyed it and I excelled in it. But also because I saw the role models around me who had this technical background. And when I entered my class, like you mentioned earlier, I did see a lot of boys, but I wasn't intimidated. I just thought, okay, this is a challenge. I just have to prove myself, because like you mentioned earlier, there is going to be a lot of biases. People are going to be like, oh, she's just a girl. What does she know? I'm not going to take her word for it. But if we really put in the work and work hard and shed off our imposter syndrome, I think we can be as good or even better than men when we also embrace our feminine sides of being more detail oriented and patient and compassionate at work, and also while doing the degree. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I hope the men in the class didn't mansplain you, all the things that they thought that was right and trying to catch you when you were wrong.
No, I had very good classmates, actually. I really enjoyed university. Kind of miss it now.
That's fantastic. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about Heriot-Watt, right? What you mentioned is more practical. So what do you believe that were the key, differentiating factors that help you that usually help you equip in the challenges that you face now in your career? What were the key things that you really felt benefited you?
The enablers that were there were, there was that semester break that we had, and I used that for voluntary internships, but the university was always helping me with letters and all that, even though it was completely voluntary. So I got all these work opportunities, and then they would send us for conferences like with the Royal Institute of Surveyors, and our lecturers would take time to help us prepare materials for our competition and stuff like that. So this all gave us more exposure, but it's also more to how the syllabus is. So it's not just measurement and all these technical things. We also learned business, operations management, facility management, and even a module on law and also land surveying. It's completely unrelated to quantity surveying, but all this makes me understand what the other department at work is doing. And, I can also try and venture into that next time. So that's what I feel like. It's good now, because with automation and digitalization, a lot of our work is also going to be replaced by IT and stuff like that. So these are the skills that I believe will make us irreplaceable in the industry.
Yeah, I think that let me ask you one quick last question before we go to the other panelists. You as a young person, the industry is going to change very quickly, right? In the next 30 years. People talk about AI, machine learning, 3D buildings, So it's a fascinating field and a lot of change coming up, driven by climate, driven by other, other trends. What do you think are some, key mindsets or skills that you need to, in a way, future-proof yourself? You mentioned that ability to say change profession within the industry, right? Maybe you could speak about a few things to, that what is some of the key ingredients people need in order to cope with this constant change in the industry.
I think it's collaboration, because last time it used to be just one specific quantity surveying company only doing consulting in quantity surveying, but now it's not like that. We are collaborating with IT people, creating softwares to ease our work in taking off. We don't do it manually anymore, and we don't draw with architects don't draw with pencil and all these things anymore. It's all Autodesk, Revit, and all these cool softwares. So we are talking to a lot of IT people, and if we are just very narrow, it's not going to be a fruitful collaboration. So I appreciate in that sense how I also had a module in IT, didn't really enjoy it, but I understand how helpful it is now, because that's how we future-proof ourselves. And of course, also communication skills. So one thing in Heriot-Watt is that there is plenty of clubs and societies and spaces to even create your own club. So there wasn't a quantity surveying club until a group of my friends, we founded it also during my time there. And I'm happy to see successors taking over it now. So there's plenty of space to create all these things. And then we have events with civil engineering students, mechanical engineering students, because we don't know in the future how we will be collaborating with these people. The future is completely beyond our imagination sometimes.
I think that's a very key point that you've just mentioned, which is collaborative work. When I came back to start practice over here, it was architects start something, engineers will get the drawings, and then they will start to work on it. Day one, when we returned, we actually looked at collaborative work. And it is the way of the future, whether it's big pharma with small pharma, whether it's big architects with smaller architects, or it's working with a group of engineering, urban, green, all the rest of it in creating something. The best products that you're going to get now, and the best way is the collaborative way, because there's a lot of knowledge sharing, but there's a lot of things that you can build on very quickly. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
Fantastic. Maybe I can ask the same question to Dr. Satesh. How will the curriculum or the teaching change, in view of these future trends that are ahead of us? How do we adapt to, make sure that the students graduating today, who will be, working in the industry in the next 40 years, are best equipped to deal with these changes going forward?
Premesh, I think that's a really great question. It's something that I think the way Komala was describing it sits really well in terms of the way it's being executed. sort of taking it from what she was saying and just kind of sharing how we are essentially doing this currently within the curriculum. One of the ways that we are trying to infuse these future skills within the curriculum, we attempt to do this through an industry immersion program that we've recently created. This is called Build. And this is where, as an undergraduate student, you could essentially participate in real life projects from industry as an assignment. And then, you could essentially spread your wings outside of the curriculum to look at the future skills and learn it directly as part of a real life project team. So this is something that we've started recently. The other way that we are attempting to bring in future skills within the undergraduate's journey as they are with us is in a very structured manner through what we call our Empower program. And this is a developmental program that's run in parallel to the undergraduate journey, really a platform to enable our students to achieve their fullest potential. And the program itself focuses on 6 developmental domains. And I believe these domains are essentially linked to the future skills that we need to see. It covers global citizenship, leadership, impact, emotional intelligence, people skills, entrepreneurship, critical thinking, decision-making. So all of these skills are built into the program itself. So it's an opportunity for the students to essentially take part in the program, use the platform to essentially excel themselves. And then they could use that to essentially, increase their knowledge and skills in the areas of, the future skills that's needed once they leave us.
Great. Yeah, I think, these programs that you mentioned are very interesting. I think it's much more than just making students learn the subject, but to make them industry ready, make them practice those skills. But speaking about the industry, I've spoken to a lot of young people that they kind of learn one thing in university, and when they hit industry, they have huge amount of ambition and passion, but they're not able to actually execute on those things. A lot of projects are very mundane. And while we talk about green, buildings and green, and built environments, in many ways, sometimes we're not building those. A lot of projects are not contributing to a better environment. We've got all these highways and roads, and we see that. So how does a young person deal with that frustration? Coming into an idealistic young person coming into the industry, for the first 3 years, and feeling that they are not really achieving what they dream about. How do we deal with that?
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's a question to me. Oh, is it you?
Go ahead, Kamala. You jump in.
Yeah, you go ahead, Kamala.
So yeah, you're right. When we finish our degree, we're like, oh, I have all this passion. I'm going to change the world kind of feeling. And then you go into corporate and you realize it's so difficult to create change because there's so many layers of hierarchy, and your boss might be okay with it, but then your boss's boss is not, and then they also don't prioritize it and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like, that may be demoralizing, but motivation is intrinsic. So if you really believe in it and stuff, maybe it's time to leave, not the industry, the job only, but also, that's just part and parcel of life, right? Nobody lands in their dream job immediately, except for Serena. She's working for her dad. It's a dream job.
Oh no, I didn't start working for him. I started working for my dream job, which was in the UK for Sir Norman Foster's. And that gave me 3 years of opening my eyes and, concept and green and all sorts of other things. That was my dream job and I got it. So where you start is important. And if you are not in the right place, then you may want to seek the change and go to a place or a company or establishment that believes in change.
Right.
And that's fundamental. I think, believes in innovation, believes in change, and therefore you're in the right sector. If not, if you're not that kind of personality, then you may not be joining that kind of firm either. So it's a sort of personality-wise what you're looking to embark on. But it is important. And so, like I see, Kamala, you say you're changing your job after the first year because you haven't found what is basically allowing you to expand on the very fundamental things that you've been, at university. So good for you.
Yeah, but I also believe, I think sometimes graduates tend to be a bit idealistic. They feel like the first job that I go to should be, a walk in the park. I'm going to really enjoy it. I'm going to do this, that. But sometimes that's not how it is, because we start off as a junior associate first. And, so I think sometimes we just have to be realistic. There will be times where not every idea of ours is going to be considered. Not everything is going to be approved, but that's how life is, right? And then, of course, if things are really, you feel like there's a disconnect, you don't feel like waking up in the morning and stuff, then it's time to look for something new. But that's what it is. Everybody goes through this exploring and stuff. And that's why, like I mentioned earlier, the transferable skills part is so important, because if you find yourself like, okay, QS, quantity surveying consulting firm is not for me, maybe I'll try a contractor company. So that's how you explore. And I think with courage and with grit, you have that patience and still that passion. Don't let anything dim your spirit. You'll be fine. You'll find your success somewhere else.
That's a great pep talk, Kamala. Got to keep the spirits up. Don't let the first job, defeat you. And as Dr. Serena was saying, I think there has to be a kind of a culture and values match, right? I think that's what you're emphasizing. That look for a company which matches your passion and your values. That's really important. But sometimes those jobs are few to come by. And often people say, look, if you want the bread and butter, just kind of go with it. So I think it's always a challenge, right? One is to find your dream job, and I think few of us do. But another way is to you have to go with the flow. Get some experience before maybe moving into a better position. Maybe I can also bring Dr. Satesh into the conversation. How do young people, how do we build resilience among young folk, right? Knowing that whatever they study, it's just the beginning. There's still a tough way ahead. How do we encourage them to be resilient in their career journey?
I think, Premesh, the question is also, for me, as I interpret it, it's really linked to what Komala and Serena were saying earlier. This sense of really knowing what you would want to do while you are essentially riding the train, and the train is moving with you on it. So with us, this is very important. This is something that we recognize is very important for a young individual. So we advocate the importance of having a clear purpose early on in the educational journey. So with us currently, all of our students actually work with our staff on developing what we call an impact statement. And this is a statement which essentially clarifies the purpose of our students. So each one of our students currently have an impact statement, and the impact statement, they develop it with our staff, and they are known as impact coaches. This is something that we are really proud of. Currently, our students that have impact statements have a sense of clarity around what they want to do, essentially their purpose, and how they're going to mobilize that purpose to impact the community positively around them. This work that we're doing is really rooted in the educational approach of positive education, which promotes and combines academic learning with character building and well-being. So just like you said, the industry that they will exit in is disruptive. It is very competitive. It is not easy. It will be difficult. So in order to build resilience and build confidence, clarity of purpose is really important. And this is something we advocate at the university in a structured manner.
Wow, I'm really impressed. I mean, the idea of an impact statement is really interesting. It's very forward-looking, and it seems to be a way to really ground the students in terms, really crystallizing what they believe in, right, and what they want. And that's a really interesting approach. I didn't realize that Heriot-Watt was taking that approach. I think as an employer, I often ask that question to our, when we're recruiting people. What do you want to do in life? What impact do you want to create? And often young people are kind of stunned. They are uncertain. And I think, maybe that, because often now we are higher based on behavior and attitude, not just based on knowledge, right? So I think if Heriot-Watt is investing in that approach, I think that's really incredible. And applaud you for that. Maybe I can put Komala on the spot and ask her what is her impact statement since she's an alumni of Heriot-Watt.
I hope Prof. Mushtaq is not here because they'll be a bit upset. I can't remember exactly my impact statement, but I think at that point I said something like, I want to create disruptive changes, and I want to be at the forefront of change and not be afraid of change, something like that. Yeah, but it was a nicer sentence.
Sorry for putting you on the spot, but did you feel that having that impact statement helped you in deciding on a career path?
Yes, it definitely did, because I remember when we were doing our impact statement, we were all just sitting and it was very quiet and we were really thinking. And I think, without having to think about the impact statement, it's hard to just, sometimes sit and think, what's my impact? So it's good that we had that activity. And it's also nice to look back and think about the impact statement and feel like, am I where I am? And that's what I recently thought also, like with this job that I'm in, do I really feel fulfilled? Am I fulfilling my impact statement? Because that's what I want. Sometimes life gets so hectic, you forget your impact and you just go on riding in that train, but you don't really know, is that really the journey that I wanted in the beginning? So it's good to have that impact statement, to have something to reflect on.
Satesh, I understand even the tutors and the whole supply chain, not only the students, also had to do this impact statement. Is it not right?
Yes,
and
Serena, you're right.
Some people actually changed their course of their life after that impact statement. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah. That's absolutely true. All the teaching faculty and also our professional services staff, all of our staff have impact statements. And our staff are impact coaches and they facilitate the impact statements for the students. So it's something that we are really proud of. And like you said, once you've sort of realized your impact statement, it can actually change your trajectory in life because you've now got some clarity around the purpose in terms of yourself as an individual.
That's really incredible. Dr. Serena, I also want to put you on the spot as well. As an employer, when you hire, what do you look for in terms of getting people into your company?
I'm looking at their work. I'm looking about how, this morning I had another interview and I'm listening to them. I'm listening to them talk about the work that they do, understanding whether it's a good fit, whether, I'm looking for bright, innovative ideas, people that can actually contribute and drive some design changes and all the rest of it. So I'm looking at their character as much as I'm looking at the works that they previously may have done, but I'm looking also for that drive. So sometimes I must say that even for myself, I do second think whether I do pick women because we've had women and they seem to drop out, exit out into either taking a more secondary role even in their entire life. And so it becomes whether, especially when you're running projects, is whether they can stay the course, basically, because you need that. But no, as I said, I think in the office we're more or less half and half with the women and in terms of gender, in terms of working. So I'm really looking at the character more than anything else because it's that quality that's going to take you through anything more than anything else. So I never knew when people said, what is the glass ceiling? For me, it's, what is the climate ceiling at the moment? It's such a big priority to me that I don't think about gender as such because I'm more focused about the whole climate. And what can we really do? And who can we change their minds about, shifting to, what did they say? 200, we have 220 days to basically change the course. It was 2030 and now it's 220 days. We're counting days. So, yeah.
But time's getting faster, we've got about 15 more minutes for the session and we're going to start taking questions from the audience. I have a question from Siva. And he's asking, does the industry also see equity as one of the key elements of social sustainability besides diversity and inclusivity? Anyone wants to take a first stab at it?
That's a tough one too. Equity and diversity are about sitting at the same parity at the moment. I think equity and provision to bring up the B40s and all the rest of it. And if I think of it in that kind of way, I think about housing. I think the B40 living standards. I think about all those kind of things. I think that we're probably not doing enough. Obviously, we're not doing enough. The minimum wage is rising up, but I think Malaysia has got a step more to do. I think a step or two more to do to get to the equity level that we talk in the kind of Swedish, Denmark kind of level, and it's all to do with provision of health, education as well, and it starts at that kind of fundamental level before we can actually push that envelope of equity to a much more balanced level.
Great. Dr. Satesh, you want to take a stab at the question? How do we address equity as part of social sustainability?
Yeah, I think what Serena has said, I think definitely rings true. I think probably it's one of the more difficult aspects of the, equitable diversity and inclusivity package coming in. So I think, my response to it, I think it's an important aspect that needs to be included, but it's probably one of the more difficult areas that could probably be worked on as comparison to diversity and inclusivity, because as Serena was mentioning, equity encompasses the balance of essentially everyone in terms of what they're doing as well.
Great. What about you, Komala? How do you think we should address it?
Okay. I don't know if this person means equity as in like merit, but I think we've mentioned it a few times how it's just because we want more women in the industry and stuff like that, we're not going to just hire a woman just for the sake of it, just to get the numbers up. Definitely she has to be able to add value to the table and stuff. But, like what Prof. Satesh was saying earlier, sometimes I feel like diversity and racial issues is still something that we have to address before addressing equity. There are a lot of opportunities that are denied because we are not a certain race and stuff like that to enter public universities, for example, and even in jobs, some people face discrimination. So I think it's all equally important, but it is what it is sometimes, right? So the only way on how we can really fight this is to really add value, I think, so that people throw all their stereotypes and their biases away and feel like, okay, I don't care what this person is. Even if you are a kangaroo, for example, they really want you, they will want you. If you really put the hard work and, something different and can add value.
Yeah. So I think, hearing from all our three speakers, equity is a tough one, right? But I think that, it's also, if we don't address equity, then the social foundations of our society are eroded. Increasing inequality is tough. And, eventually there's a pushback. People get, really unhappy, right? I mean, there was one statistic showing that, social mobility has really decreased, meaning that, if you're born into a low-income family, your chances of escaping that and moving into middle and high income is actually very low, which was not the case, say, for previous generations, where social mobility was, supported. That even a low-income family, one child could go do medicine or do law, and then the whole family could, move up from that. But that's no longer the case. I think that it's really a very important issue, but a complex one, as we have pointed out, but should be addressed. I got one more question. I think it's from one of your students. I'm a foundation student at Heriot-Watt, planning to pursue a QS degree. My goal is actually to build houses for animal shelters and to join the construction industry. Do you think quantity saving can help me to strive? I'm quite lost. Who would want to add some clarity? Dr. Satesh?
Yes, I can. I could jump in. I think that's a really great question. First, I really like the way the question was framed. I think it's shown some real clarity in terms of the purpose as well. So I think, yes, one of the, the options for you would be quantity surveying. I think this definitely would be beneficial moving into what you would like to do at the university. I think this is definitely something you could explore further. Probably we could hear from Komala, and Komala could jump in from the perspective of being a student and how that would actually also relate to the question. But definitely, I think, yes, I think that's definitely along the right lines in terms of your choice of degree.
Fantastic. Komala, what do you think?
Yes, so this person has clearly said that they want to build houses, they want to build animal shelters. Yeah. So this is really interesting. But of course, it's not necessary you have to be a QS. You can be an architect, you can be an engineer. But I think she or he has already fixated. She really wants that. To be honest, in foundation, I wasn't really thinking like that. But a degree is just a passport, I feel. You can do any degree and you can still build houses and animal shelters from different perspectives. You could be a client and you can still do that. You could be an employer. But of course, this webinar is about encouraging more people to do built environment degrees. So sure, go ahead. And because QS is very flexible degree, it's versatile. It's not as technical as civil engineering, which is a lot of maths and churning all kind of numbers and shapes. So go for it. And you can transfer and pivot if you feel like it's too technical. I think you should really go for it, because sometimes there is no perfect, like even when I went for my degree in QS, I wasn't 100% sure, but I just thought, okay, I'm just going to dive into it, because after that, how do I say this? Same with work also, sometimes you just learn on the job or you learn on the degree, and then you see how you can use that degree towards your real goal of building houses and animal shelters. Thank you for the question.
Well, the question is a very niche question. There are two parts to that question, I think. One is, what do I want to do with my life? As in, what's the course of my work? And listen, it can change. Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, you might start as being an architect. In my family, the word is, if you become an architect, you can do any other job. But that's a biasness, I think. But animal shelters are very specific, and it's a niche. So it may be that you're doing prefabrication later on for animal shelters, then you're going into the construction. Or is it because that's your passion, you want to protect animals? So, and that may be the outcome of what you do, as in, I'm creating money by being into finance, but part of my passion and hobby or passion is doing something for animal shelters. So I think know whether one is a passion that is something that you want to support, and one that is the direction of work that you want to do. Because yes, being a quantity surveyor or whatever is got different things. You may find that it's too boring being a quantity surveyor, for example. So if I was to tell you, yes, you should go ahead and finish it, and then you come out and say, well, I was actually kind of bored out of that. And there's an amount of measurements, numbers that I have to do. So I think look at the course as in what it helps to prepare you for, and whether that is something you'd like to do versus a passion of being protective and something that you want, you have an animal shelter. Or it's like saying, I actually on the weekends, I want to do, I'm a cyclist, sort of thing. So I think know which one it is that you're wanting to focus on.
And also check out Ikigai. I think it really helps to know what is your passion and what's something that you can make money off. And yeah, it's a really good thing to check out.
Can you repeat that again? Look up for?
Ikigai. It's this Japanese concept of, because this person is quite lost. So they will tell you on what is your passion, your hobby, and what is something that you can make money off, but still enjoy doing and make money.
Yeah, I think the different spheres, right? And what overlap. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another question from Hong Chin. How do you know when to change your impact statement? As your life experience changes your perspective. So you have one impact statement, but life is telling you something else. How do you know when to change?
So maybe I can jump in and just address that question first. I think the first thing to, which I should say as a background, to develop the impact statement, we go through a process. And Komala mentioned the Ikigai process. And we go through a process of essentially identifying yourself, who you are as a person, through different character values. And then it feeds into the Ikigai, which is essentially to understand what is your purpose in life. And I'm seeing some comments coming through the chat, how Ikigai is originating from Okinawa. And those of us that are around my age, you will remember Karate Kid and how Karate Kid originates from Okinawa. So it's not just about Karate Kid and karate, it's about Ikigai. So we go through this process.
You're giving away your age, Satesh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's about this process essentially of understanding what is your purpose and going through a process of crystallizing it towards the end, and then you will get your impact statement. So the impact statement itself will have some degree of clarity, but we do acknowledge that as you progress through life, it can and it most probably will change. In the amount of time I've been at the university, I've changed it twice because of the different things that I've been doing. And it's absolutely fine to do that. And you will know when it's ready to change, because if it doesn't resonate with you anymore, then essentially that's when you would say to yourself, look, maybe I need to revise the statement. But the key here is, we are starting the process so that you're able to have a purpose. Most young people, when they come into university, they don't necessarily have a purpose. Yeah. So definitely it can change, and we recognize that that can be the case.
So what you're saying is that it's actually natural to change. It's normal. But the fact that you spend the time thinking about it, planning it, writing something down, that's the important part of things.
Yes.
Yeah. Then, yeah. Great. Komala, you wanted to add something?
No, I really agree to that, because recently I've also kind of changed my. I'm working in a developer company now. It's completely construction and all, but I recently felt like, is this really what I want to do? It's not resonating with me. I'm not feeling excited anymore when I wake up in the morning. So I just thought, let's look outside. Let's see what else is there. And I've just very recently accepted an offer to work in it's kind of like a software company, but they are also doing more to construction software. So this is where I also just want to echo what we were saying earlier, how it's so broad, and there are so many things a quantity surveying graduate can do. And if you ask me, am I good at softwares? Am I good at IT? I'm not, but I really feel like it's okay. I'm going to go out of my comfort zone. Let's just try this, take a risk, take this challenge and try, and let me see if this new job is going to resonate with my impact statement. And I also want to give myself time, because I've just graduated and I cannot off the bat know this is my passion, this is my ikigai, and I'm going to carve it on stone. It cannot change. So I'm going to give myself time to kind of explore. And I think everybody should, do that and not be very harsh to ourselves. Like, oh, I did quantity surveying, I have to be a quantity surveyor only, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we've got 2 more minutes, so we'll come up to closing statements. Dr. Serena, any advice for our audience, for women students and other people in our audience in terms of joining the built industry?
I think I just want to leave one thing, is that I think we need to challenge ourselves as much, women as much as the perception outside there. And not fall into this, I'm in the supporting role only. I can actually lead. And in the building ecosystem, to include more leadership position strategies for diversifying management to improve gender balance, I think would be obviously great. But I think it has to come from ourselves first. I think we are quite fortunate, I think, in Malaysia. It's if you've seen Saudi Arabia has started to open up and all the rest of it, we aren't exactly in a very backward, nor am I saying are we very forward, but we're now at the apt time to actually make that change. And so we have to believe in ourselves that we can make that change, and don't let fear hold you back, and realize men as much as women have fears. It's just that men hide it better. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sarina. Satesh, any last words of advice?
Sure, Prem. I think, personally, from my point of view and also my passion is the focus of really raising awareness and debunking stereotypes. And, I hope today with this webinar, we have really shown that, that stereotypical definition of the built environment or construction industry is not actually something that is necessarily male dominated. Yes, I know there's more men than women within the industry itself, but you can see here today, hopefully we have taken that step in terms of debunking that stereotype. So I'm really hopeful to see more discussions such as these through other avenues. I'm really hopeful to see, if there are young women on the call today, and if they're thinking about a degree in built environment or in the construction and building arena, they should essentially say to themselves, look, there's definitely space for me to have a very lucrative career in this particular industry. So I really hope that's a key takeaway for today. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, hopefully they will look at it and they will really come to Heriot-Watt and explore that journey even more. Komala Selva, any last words of advice?
I really agree with what Prof. Satesh and Dr. Sarina has mentioned, but if there's one thing I want to add is also, I think it boils down to personal branding also, because a lot of times when we say quantity surveying, it's not a very popular degree. I go to weddings and people are like, what is quantity surveying? What are you doing? So it's not as glamorous as saying, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor. It's very glamorous, but I also want to say that what is a glamorous field depends on you. If you are really doing well in whatever it is that you do, quantity surveying or anything else, then people will want to be like you. Like I see Dr. Sarina, she's doing all sorts of cool stuff. And there are role models. There are people who want role models like her. So that's one thing. And that's why, sometimes I feel like professions like quantity surveying is not very popular. It's not very famous because people it's also because those who are in the industry like us, we don't brand ourselves like that. We don't say, oh, today I'm visiting a construction site. This is also cool. People look at a construction site and they're like, dirty, dust. But actually, it's very cool. All the scaffolding and everything. It's on how you see things and also on how role models see these things for these other people. So, I really think personal branding, and also I feel like a degree, like anything else, you do the degree, it's what you do with the degree after that, because a lot of times it's not exactly the work is not exactly like what you studied, but it's how you transfer the skill after that. So just be open and have a big risk appetite.
Thanks a lot, Komala. That's really inspiring. I love to watch architecture and construction videos on YouTube. And when you see how they do these amazing structures and buildings, it's such an amazing industry that we are able to create this built environment using our skill and knowledge and technologies. So I think it's a fantastic industry to be in, something which is evolving very quickly and very exciting. So we're going to wrap up now. A big thanks to our three panelists, Dr. Sarina, Dr. Satesh, and Komala. I think it's been very interesting discussion. We really talked about the industry and how women can participate, a lot of role models, a lot of opportunity, so we hope that there'll be more gender equality in the industry. Heriot-Watt definitely welcomes women to come and study in the university. And I'm so excited that the fact that education is not just about the skills and the knowledge, but it's also character building where students are encouraged to explore what impact they can bring to society. That's really encouraging to hear, and I congratulate Heriot-Watt for taking that approach. So thank you very much, our audience, for participating today. I'm sure you can contact the panelists and reach out and drop by the university to learn even more. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again in our next episode. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Komala, by the way, I think you can call yourself financial planner for construction.
Yes.
Because once you say you're financial planner, everybody will come to you. You're financial planner. Yeah, but I do
sounds more interesting. Huh?
Change the QS, man. Quantity, your finance.
Yes, you're right.
You are the key to telling us whether we can construct it or not.
Yes. And we tell you whether it's going to be an overrun of the budget.
Fantastic. It's a good point, Dr. Serena. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Hand it back to you, V.
Since our storied beginning in Edinburgh, UK over 200 years ago, we have been outward-looking pioneers of education. We understand the value of delivering access to world-class education. And with our strong historic links with Malaysia dating back to 2011, the country was the clear choice in the next chapter of Heriot-Watt University's story. Ever since? Well, far be it from us to toot our own bagpipes, but it's been quite the decade for Heriot-Watt University Malaysia. Our story begins in 2012 as we welcomed our first 16 students to our first campus in Menara Putrajaya. Even as they walked through our doors, we were already building our new sustainable and sprawling 4.8-acre lakeside campus. Finally, in 2014, the Heriot-Watt University Malaysia campus proudly became our new home, the country's very first green campus. Here, we welcomed new faces, innovative new spaces, and celebrated the truly global leaders of tomorrow. And as we took to the stage, our students stepped proudly onto the world stage themselves. It's been an amazing decade where our students discovered new places, experienced new cultures, and expanded their horizons along the way, where they became true global citizens, learning to thrive in a fast-changing, globally connected world. Here's to 10 years of diversity and inclusivity, of discovery and progressiveness, of delivering impact and driving purpose, of work and play, and building truly global, future-ready graduates. Heriot-Watt University Malaysia. What a decade!